Hey everyone, welcome to the LJEffect podcast, affecting your mind and body to become your most authentic self. Today, I have a young entrepreneur here with me today. He is the CEO and founder of Envision Clothing Company. Young entrepreneur, 22 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Mike Eversole.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
This is great. All right, man. So from Canton, Ohio, grew
Yeah.
up, born and raised there. Awesome, dude.
Yeah, so I grew up in Navarre, Ohio. It was a small town, like 15, 20 minutes away from Canton. And then once I got out of high school and in college and even out of college, I ended up moving into Canton. So it's definitely been different. Grew up in the country. Now I've kind of had to adapt to the city, if you will. So that's definitely been different. But yeah, that's where I'm currently at. And actually, right now I'm in New Mexico for my college coaching job. I'm a graduate assistant here at Eastern New Mexico. So I just flew in just the other day.
Yeah, no, you were telling me that that you flew in yesterday and just trying to get settled and everything. You went back to Ohio for a little bit, just a little vacay, and also kind of do some organizing and stuff for the company and things like that, right?
Yeah, so whenever I first went back, I started doing more workout related things with my summer ball organization that I coach with, and then just honestly, we had our recent launch that first week of December, and so I was pretty busy just throughout the month of December, just between the launch, between practices, between meeting guys throughout the week, still recruiting for Eastern New Mexico, following up with past recruits we had reached out to, doing more video work. I was trying to up my vlogs. I mean, it was just a million and one things going on, but I do this stuff because I love it and keeps me busy. And honestly, it just kind of like it gives like no room for an excuse. Like
Yeah.
I got to get everything done. I know I put a lot on my plate, but I think it's because I can still handle it.
Yeah, no, definitely, dude. Absolutely. Especially if you got that fire and that drive and that ambition, man, just to get after it, just go for it.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
mean, I kind of look at it, nobody's going to do it for you. So you kind of just
yeah.
have to take some ownership and, you just got to do it yourself, really.
Yeah. Well, and dude, I mean, if you have a plan, you really can't fail unless if the plan fails. But really, it's just like, even with a plan, you can always recalibrate things and just see how things can work later on and moving forward into the future,
Mhm.
just seeing what things are going to take place like a year, 5 years down the road, even, just for a small example. But dude, okay, Mike. So when did you start playing baseball?
So I started playing baseball when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I
Mhm.
played on just like the local t-ball team with some of my friends, and actually one of them is my current assistant coach with the Brownlee Lookouts, my summer organization that
Oh,
I'm with.
cool.
So it was my buddy Brock. We had like played together starting out in t-ball, and then just kind of as the more I played, the more I liked it. My parents liked it. I mean, it was something that kept me busy, and I fell in love with sports pretty quick at a young age.
Mm.
I think it was just the ability to run around, meet people, to be good at something and attach yourself to it. So I think that's why sports kind of became really important to me at just a younger age.
Hmm. Yeah, no, me too, man. Like, I started out playing baseball when I was younger. I didn't follow through with it altogether, but I knew that I was an overall athlete. Like, just it was just a part of me growing
Mhm.
up and as a kid. But I can definitely appreciate the sport for what it is and how it is and what it is now today. But I definitely was an athlete overall too, and I ended up switching gears and I ended up playing soccer throughout the rest of my high school career. Even before high school, it was just something that I could do. Me and my brothers actually enjoyed playing it a lot, so it kind of turned into a family sport for us.
Oh, that's
So that
awesome.
was yeah.
Yeah,
So
I had my go around at soccer a time or two.
oh,
I was
did you? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I'm sure we'll probably dive into that here a little bit more. But yeah.
Sure. No, sure, man. Yeah, and it's just that was just something that did it for me, like baseball does it for you, And I think that's kind of the beauty of athletes nowadays. Like it's something that they can just put their heart and their passion into, And at the end of the day, it kind of makes them more complete, whether they decide to get into business or whatever kind of career or vocation they take. But they can always fall back on like a little bit of, just that athletic trait that they had. They can always fall back to that. That could be kind of like their decompression, or it can be a way that they express themselves if they play some sports on the side while they're still working their career, doing their career
Yeah.
during their jobs. Whether it's a city league or if they just like to go out onto a field and practice and like throw a ball around, kick a ball, hit a couple balls around, just whatever it could be.
Hmm.
But so, how did high school turn out for you with baseball?
So it was baseball was pretty interesting for me growing up. Just with me being part of a small town, you have a lot of opinions. You
Mm.
know, this was as we were growing up. That's when like social media was starting to take a really good role just in things. Like by the time I was in sixth grade, that's like when everybody was getting MySpace. That's when everybody was getting their first flip phones.
Oh
That's
yeah,
where you had
remember
some
that.
families that were like, hey, I want to get my son a flip phone, and then you had other families like those parents are insane. How would they give their kid a phone at such a young age? So I
Yeah.
guess what I'm trying to say is, like when I was younger and was playing baseball, small town community played such a big role because everybody knew everybody.
Mm.
And I mean, you could
Me
literally
too.
you could just be walking down the sidewalk, and when you get home, your parents know where you were at, who you were with, because so and so
Oh
had
man.
driven past. They called your parents just to see if like they knew that you were out and about. And we had a really tight niche group growing up just when it came to baseball. And so the it was the local just baseball league. We had played in it. We like won a lot of games, and it's just just to be honest, like there was just no competition. But with us
Mm.
being at such a young age, we were innocent to the fact that we just thought we were that good. And one of my friend's dads, he ended up kind of taking, like in his eye, the best of the best, if you will. We put a team together. We ended up traveling just throughout, like within an hour or two radius. And at that time, being really young, 8 to 10 years old, it was like kind of a big deal for us. And I remember the community, we received like a lot of backlash, like, oh, you guys think
Mm.
you're like that good? You left our local league. And we're like, hey, like we're young, like we love baseball, our parents love baseball. I mean, us as players being that young, we're like, we just get to play, where our parents were kind of like trying to put us in that situation that could potentially prepare us, like when we get into middle school, and then obviously when we get into high school, and then obviously if you have that college opportunity, that obviously needs to be there.
Mm.
So we did that for a few years, and then I honestly got to a point where like that same friend whose dad had started our team, they had left and went to another team. And I mean, all of us, we broke up, but we were still together, if that makes sense. Like we were still
Right.
friends. Like we were still curious about like how people were playing, how they were doing, do they still love the game, right? So I actually went to a team that was actually in my hometown rival. Like it was in that neighborhood. So with the school that I went to, I got a lot of backlash just for, mind you, I'm like 12, and
Mm.
everybody, like you'd have thought that, I made like the worst decision of my life. And I'm just like, I just want to play baseball. I just want to be on good teams. I want to play in good leagues. I want to play like, in my eyes, like the best of the best in the area as much as possible. That is. Um, so I did that all the way going up to high school. And if I'm being honest, like I think just with how much my parents supported me and how much I was willing to push myself, I always wanted more. Like I always just wanted more and more and more. And I had to earn that. I had to work for that. But whenever I got into high school, I mean, granted, like it was a small school, but at that time, I had like one goal in mind. I wanted to play on the varsity team as a freshman, and
Nice.
this was going to be the first time in a few years where that core, when we were younger, this was going to be the first time that we were going to reconnect and be back together.
Oh, wow.
And everybody was so excited for it, and everybody's like, I don't want to play JV, I don't want to play varsity, like let's just play like let's just all try to stay on the freshman team, let's play our 10 games or whatever it was, let's stick together, let's have fun, and like let's reconnect, because essentially like my class was going to be kind of the next class that they were looking forward to have in that baseball program at the high school. So when we all started out as freshmen, and I mean just like right away, the coaching staff saw like in their eyes, people to potentially move around, pull up, what have you. The majority of us ended up just playing JV at first, and then like about 5, 7 games into the year, I was, fortunate enough, I got a varsity opportunity. So I ended up moving up to varsity for the
Nice.
rest of the season, and I earned a spot, and I never left. And same with another freshman that I had playing with me growing up. He was mostly a pitcher. He ended up being, our most winningest pitcher in our high school's history. And
That's great.
he ended up going to college and playing at a Division II in West Virginia. But
Oh, wow.
just academic side. He was never a bad student. It's just college just wasn't for him. He recognized that early and just said, I need to. This is my time to walk away. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, but high school was so important to me at the time because I felt like I had the world on my shoulders. I'm like, I'm in a small town. You're not supposed to do great things here.
Mhm.
Every adult wants you to do great things until you start doing better than them.
Right.
Then every decision that you make is ridiculed, or your perception of others starts to kind of hit a decline. Why? Because in their eyes, you have created a quote unquote ego for yourself. Where I mostly kind of looked at things, I just wanted to be the best me that I could be, whatever that looks like, whatever that led me to. So it wasn't until my sophomore year, the rest of my class had joined me, on varsity. And it was a blast. It was like a dream
Mhm.
come true, if you will, because
That's
I got to
awesome.
play with all of my friends, and like
Yeah.
we all loved the game so much. And I went home one day. I was really young, and I had talked about, oh, I want to play in college, I want to be a major leaguer, I want to play baseball for a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until like my sophomore year I was just like, okay, like I need to go to college. I need to play baseball in college. How do I do this? I don't know how to do this. Not many people got that opportunity out of my hometown. So that network, if you will, there
Mhm.
wasn't really one. It was, if you knew the right guy at the right time, he could get somebody in front of you to come and watch you. And so I spent that entire time, like I was trying to get stronger. And at that time baseball was, hey, if you lift a weight, you're going to ruin your arm, you're done. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I should never lift a weight. So I did mostly like body related stuff, like your push-ups, your pull-ups, your crunch it, right? Like I did all that. I tried to run all the time. And I was just, how do I do this? So I went to showcases. I started to get somewhat noticed. I was so oblivious to what true player development was. I was just, here's me on this random Saturday or Sunday, and whatever you get today, that's what you get out of me. And I was so oblivious to the process of actually developing as a high school player. And I was like really passionate with baseball with my dad, and we had always talked about just, there's so much more than just the hometown. Don't worry about like what's going on now. Put all your heart and effort into it. But like there's a next chapter if you want there to be one, right?
Mhm.
And I just we were so worried about just the cost of college and
Mhm.
who has scholarships, who does. I was so oblivious. I'm like, I was always told, hey, if you go D3, like that means you're just like the worst of the worst. And if you go D2, like you're still not good. And if you go Division 1, like you have a right to speak on your career, if you will. But I was just like, I was so overwhelmed with that process. I was like,
Mhm.
it's exhausting, and it mentally, it never like took my love of the game away, but I was just like, this is so hard because you ask every teacher or even our athletic director
Oh,
at the
wow.
time had no idea until like our new one had come in and ended up being
Okay.
my basketball coach. Like that's where I got a sense of things. But fast forward to my junior year, my dad ended up passing away the day before my junior year was supposed to start. Like we were supposed to have our first practice. And for me, I definitely fell into a role that I should have never fallen into. I started reverting to a lot of bad habits. And people on my platforms, they've heard this story a million and one times. And the reason
Mhm.
why I will always retell the story is because it is so essential. And on like helping people understand who I am, why I am the way I am, and just kind of like why I do the things I do at this given time, like at this day right now, like this is why I am the way I am. So when I lost my dad, I didn't know what to do because we were a small community. Like I definitely had tons of support. I had so much sympathy. I had like no idea what to even do with it. I tried handling things on my own. I didn't know how to. So, I mean, I started drinking a lot, and, I was hanging out with my friends. They would drink and I would drink with them. They're drinking to have fun. I'm drinking to try to solve a problem. And I
Mhm.
was so prideful of my feelings and honestly of my words. And I never wanted to have conversations with people, not even in my family. Like it just created tons of arguments throughout my family because I knew I had a problem, but it wasn't until somebody else recognized I had a problem, then I was in denial of my problem. It was
Mhm.
something I wanted to keep to myself, and eventually I didn't know how to. Um, so my junior year, like, yeah, we played the season. It was my worst season of my high school career. I still did good, right? I
Mhm.
still did good, but like I went from going this my freshman and sophomore year to I kind of went like right here,
Mhm.
kind of rode there, and then I climbed back up.
Okay.
Um, at the time, it was when my dad was still alive. I was reached out by the Brownlee Lookouts, and they had offered me a spot to come play on the team. It's a travel organization that I'm currently coaching with now.
Yeah.
Summer baseball, it's expensive, especially if you want to play good teams and you want to be around the best of the best. Like it does cost money. Tournaments aren't free, and you know. And at that time, I had asked my parents, "Hey, like, I think this is my ticket," because I look at their track record and I'm like, "This is my ticket. This is what's going to help me." And just we couldn't afford it. And a week
Mhm.
later, when my dad had passed away, they had called, given me a spot on the team. The organization had covered it. So that summer of my junior year, while I was going through the worst thing that I've ever experienced, there was actually a light at the end of the tunnel that I didn't realize right away. I was given that opportunity. I met new people. I learned how to actually develop as a player. And even looking back today, I kind of laugh at how I looked at player development when I was 16 years old. And so I got a lot better. And
Yeah.
moving into my senior year, I was like really excited, and I was starting to get phone calls from schools. Granted, they were all Division 2, Division 3 schools. No, they were never big schools.
Mhm.
But for me, I was willing to take anything as a win because I knew whatever program I was going to go to, they were going to get somebody who like just values people. I love and respect the game. The X's and O's of winning, losing, hitting 400 and hitting 10 home runs. You know what I mean? All that stuff. That's just internal stuff that was going to take care of itself essentially. But, I just wanted to be a good person. And whenever I had some offers come through, I was like so excited because I'm like, 6 months ago, I was freaking out, not knowing what I was going to be and who I was going to be. And then I got into that spot where I was like, I have decisions to make and it feels really good. And the coach had recruited me. His name was Corey Douglas. So Corey was a guy who, he just was so transparent, so honest. Like to understand his love for the game,
Mhm.
I was just like, this is a guy like I want to go play for. And I ended up committing to Hiram College, which that's where he was at. And right before I got on campus, he actually took another job at his alma mater, Mount Union University. And I was just like, either way, I'm going to go here and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to take care of business. And, I had like all the sympathy of everything that I had went through just weighing on my shoulders. And
Mhm.
whenever I got to college, I learned really quick, nobody was going to give a rat's about me and what I went through. And
Right.
it was put up or shut up. My senior year, we had the best season in, a long time. We should have won the conference championship. That's a whole different story. Some just, I don't blame umpires. I don't blame teammates. I don't blame the other team. It was just bad place, bad time, if you will, for what occurred in the game. Lost by one in extra innings, and to this day it sounds corny, right? Because everybody wants to get out of high school per se. That was the first time where I thought I truly had something taken away from me when it came to baseball, and I think that led to the energy that I had when I got to college. I was overweight from all the drinking I'd done.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to really work hard anymore. I didn't have a good mindset towards things. And I got to that point where they're like, hey, you can hit a little bit. Anything else, nothing's really there. And they're like,
Wow.
we'll keep you. But I'm like sitting here thinking, this program wasn't even successful. And here I was coming out of high school as an all-state player, getting told that I wouldn't ever play here. That didn't fly with me. So that's like really where I made the turnaround. Like I hired a trainer who was my former basketball coach. I lost all this weight. I got really strong. I mean, was a complete different person from fall to the spring. And I ended up getting to play right away as a freshman. That was like something I was really prideful in, is like, I got to play early. I have to play early, not because of my ego and, you know, the worry of what other people have to say. It was like, it was something that I had to fulfill. And so whenever I did that, you know, I knew like eventually the rest of my life was going to start falling in order. And looking back, I can say I think it did. But that's really just my timeline of high school baseball and what I did and what I went through to, I mean, honestly, go to college and what I had prepared to get into college. And, you know, I think that's why I'm the coach I am now. And that's why I get to do the things that I get to do today, was just from literally just mindset. It's mindset over matter, really.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, like going back a little bit, like seeing like just what's going to happen in the next 6 months. You just never truly know. You know, you're kind of living with a little bit of that uncertainty, especially being a high performance athlete and just trying to see where all your options are at and where you're going to go and what you want to do. And you want to be the best of the best, you know,
Yeah.
and just play your heart out and just play it just mainly for the love of the game, you know.
Right.
But so my next question for you was, what did you go to college for?
So
And
I
where?
went to, and it was so funny because when I was still in high school and everybody's like, "Hey, congrats, you committed somewhere, like that's so awesome." Like, what are you studying? And I'm like, I named a bunch of majors that the school didn't even have. I was so at that time. At that time, you know, I committed when I was 17. I was in my senior year, and I was just like, I, I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to major and minor in this. And they're like, "Oh, that's awesome." You know, they're not going to take the time to go and see if they have it. But I'm
Right.
sitting there like, man, I don't know what I want to do. I get to play baseball. Let's start there.
Sure.
But I ended up going for communication, entrepreneurship, and then I did sport management my senior year. I kind of packed the classes in to get that minor because that was the first year it was offered. So
Hmm.
that's what I went to school for. You know, and I honestly enjoyed my college career just as a student. I think it was just the ability to have a lot of freedom as a student, and you know, classrooms were smaller, and I really appreciated that environment, just getting to know my teachers one on one.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in the, you know, go sit in a lecture hall with 400 students and like, you know, maybe if you look like an asshole enough, like because you're annoying the teacher, maybe they figure out who you are. And I
Right.
just was like never really big into that,
Right.
knowing that I wasn't ever going to get like a scholarship to go Division 1 where I could potentially be in an environment like that. So I knew going into a smaller school, I was going to have that one-on-one freedom. And I think that was the most important thing for me.
Hmm. Very good. Yeah. No, man, that's true. You definitely don't want to try and get like enveloped in those large, big lecture halls and everything. It's just if you know where your D1's going to be at, dude, then just go for it. You know.
Right.
But leading into my next question for you, when did Envision Clothing Company start while you were in college?
So it was it was halfway through my sophomore year. I I was taking a lot of entrepreneurship classes, and I would think I was fortunate around one, you know, the professor was extremely knowledgeable, just in business development, just the ability to pivot and make an adjustment somewhere. I was also fortunate to be around, you know, classmates that were older, and kind of the more I talked with them and the more they learned me and my story, the more they were like, "Dude, you can literally create a platform that just showcases honestly just honesty, transparency, personal development. You know, you could literally create something. Have you ever thought about doing anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just don't know what." And I spent my time in the evenings because I lived in a suite that I had three other people with me, and I was sitting there just like I'm sketching ideas. Like I'm not even like
Yeah.
drawing logos or nothing. I'm just like I'm trying to create this idea. And the biggest thing for me was until I had a vision, that's when things started going in the right course for me. And you know, I was going down the right path again. So I knew that word vision was like super, that thing stuck out so like so often and early for me.
Yeah.
And I started my brand. Just it was Envision Clothing Company. I didn't know how to get product. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get licensed. I didn't even have a logo. I
Mm.
was like, I want to diversify a clothing brand where I can showcase people from not only like a fitness and athletic related industry, but honestly people like who can utilize the clothing for just like different forms of versatility, just like if they're going out on the town, if they're just hanging out with some friends, if they're, hitting a workout in the gym. I just wanted to create something that was going to bring people together. It was going to help get my word out there more. And at the time, we had just got a new roommate. Nobody knew him. I knew him from a mutual friend that I had played baseball with. He was like, "Hey, my buddy needs somewhere to live. Like, you guys have an extra room. Can he take it?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, I don't care. Like, is he cool? Is he nice? Like, what's he like?" And he was like, "You'll like him." And I'm like, all right, well, the first couple months that he lived with us, he like was never around. We
Mm.
were like, man, like this guy like must hate us, or well, it turns out like he did Uber at night. So like he'd go to class all day. He played
There you go.
soccer, so he'd go to soccer practice, and then he would get showered, and then just he would go driving all night. And then while we're all sleeping, that's when he would come in and sleep. And it just we never connected. And one night when I was just trying to map out this idea and how I was going to do it, like I saw him, he was just like sketching things, and he was like doing stuff on his computer. And I'm like, "Are you a graphic designer? Like, are you a draw? Are you like, what are you?" And he's like, "Yeah,
Mm.
I kind of do it all." And I was like, "I'll pay you whatever you want, create a logo for me." And so he did. And that's where I was just like, hey, I'm really big on people, and I just said, hey, I'd like you to just be my designer. It's simplistic, it's comfortable. I know you personally now, so that kind of helped kick our relationship off for the
Yeah.
better.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I just told him, hey, out of loyalty, like I always want you to be my designer. And I just told him, hey, like, you know how it goes with business, like you can't make money unless this makes money. And, we just got obviously just the growth obviously just started. He had some in and outs to things that I didn't and vice versa. And that's how we honestly kind of started it. It wasn't until um, my junior year, it was September 7th. That was the first day that I launched my own website with our
Mm.
own items, and that's when we had started to accept orders. And that was September 7th, 2018. And here we are now,
Wow.
just kicking off 2021, coming off the best month that we have ever had.
Mm.
And I'm not big into just like the egotistical part of it. I'm honestly more about like I love talking about when I fail. I love talking about when I made mistakes. I love
Yeah.
talking about when things went wrong. I also enjoy talking about the good because it shows people that it's growing, it is manifesting into what I want it to. But I think the most important thing is so many people, they have these ideas and they have things that they want to do. Everybody has their own form of dream and ambition, but
Yeah.
they either don't have the resources to do it, or they're so worried about the acceptance of other people they end up talking themselves out of it. And the last part is
So true.
just the fear of failure. Like
Yeah.
so many people are scared to fail. That's why they don't ever fulfill their dreams or ambitions in any way, shape, or form. That's why I like to utilize my platform to almost challenge people to go after the things that they're after. Because if you don't, I mean, you'll probably never forgive yourself if you never took the potential leap of faith, and you always let the internal voice inside your head just like win every single time. So
So
that's
true.
why that's why I believe that this brand is just more than a t-shirt. It's more than just clothing. It's about pursuing a message, and also abiding by that every single day.
Yeah. Wow, dude. No, that's great. That's awesome. No, man. And I think that's so true too, dude. Like that last part that you were talking about where people will literally talk themselves out of achieving their dreams, or they're just so worried about the backlash that they'll feel or hear from people, even if they're putting things out on these platforms, their own social media platforms, and developing a design or a t-shirt or a product they want to sell and just kind of push it out there. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna have those kinds of people or that kind of feedback anyway. But at the same time, though, too, the beauty of it is that you will get to see the good, because regardless of what kind of a product you're selling or what kind of merch you're putting out there, like it's going to provide some sort of value for those people that support you. And
Right.
sometimes it's a matter of like starting out small. And I'm kind of big on this myself. I learned this from the book, The One Thing. Like, you just got to start out small by doing the same thing, that one thing every single day that you can, that's going to help you be complete, that's going to help you get to where you want to be. You know,
Right.
you do that one thing every single day, where everything else is, where everything else isn't necessary, or everything else becomes necessary once you get that one thing done. And so when you start out small, you start to network with those kinds of people. You slowly build an audience. You slowly start to build a following. And believe it or not, that small support group can tell like 2 to 50 to 100 different people, in different states around the
Yeah.
world, what have you, and then eventually over time, and it does take time, it takes time. And as
Yeah.
for you as a person, it's going to take patience just to wait for the big end goal to come in, whether it's going to be maybe another 5 or maybe another 10 years before your product, your merch, whatever you're trying to do with your brand is going to blow up and
Yeah.
grow and expand. So
Yeah. And I think, I think the best part about it is, when I first started it and I was sharing just pictures and stuff like on Snapchat, and I'm sending it to everybody, people I know, people I don't know, like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, I found you on Instagram, and then I saw that you had a YouTube channel, and then after that, dude, like after that initial platform, I'm just like, okay, this guy's got something going on.
yeah,
And
and
I saw the feedback, and I saw the good, man. Like, I saw your increase there, like with your audience on, as far as your channel goes, and then per se your followers too with your
yeah,
brand. It was just awesome to see that grow in the last couple of years. But when shoot, what am I trying to say? So like I saw you. I think I didn't start following you till like the end of 2019, and then in 2020, I just started to see like just everything just start to connect and just move. It was really cool, man.
well, I looked at 2020 as that was going to be the year where people were either going to make or break their
Yeah,
situation.
this is
And
very true.
I was in that tough spot where I had started my second semester at Hiram. It was my senior year. I was dealing with senior capstone. I'm, getting shoved down my throat by everybody in my family, and
Hmm.
even like just teachers about like, wait, what's after this? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're gonna sell shirts the rest of your life? And it was almost a game.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm gonna do number one, I'm gonna do what makes me happy, because if you do things that you're not really passionate about, you are living an unfulfilled life, in my opinion. And
Absolutely,
I
I
knew this
agree.
was gonna be my last go around at baseball. I wanted to just focus solely on that. I wanted to just focus on baseball, baseball, baseball.
Hmm.
And I knew like I wanted to start a YouTube channel to kind of document like that internal process, like where
Hmm.
people kind of get that opportunity to get to know me a little bit more on a personal level. And I think that's just so big with how people are today, especially now. It's so hard to trust other people. And when we started our season, like when we started practicing, like I just felt so different. I was like, this is bittersweet, but it's like, I'm having a fun time doing this. We went to Florida, we started playing our games, and then boom, like on our bus ride home, it was like, hey, the season's done. And that definitely took a toll on me. I think probably for a week or so, where I was just like I didn't get one more at bat. I didn't get to throw one more guy out. I didn't get to honestly, I didn't get to fail one more time, right?
Hmm.
And I went home. We went to online schooling, and I was just kind of sitting there. We were so unaware of like what COVID really was and how you could get
Yeah.
it. And I mean, so I was trying to just play everything extremely safe. Never left the house. I was scared to, if I'm being honest. And then I got to that point where I was just like, I'm not growing in any way. Like I'm sitting here all day long. Yes, I understand there's a pandemic going on. So I actually got together with, my partner Jan Almasy, who does his podcast, the Apex podcast, and he was still a nurse at the time, and like
Hmm.
we were just like, hey, like, I have an opportunity to quarantine at a local university. Like, do you want to stay there with me? And like, let's talk strategy for the year. Let's try to pivot. Let's try to grow somewhere. Let's like hold one another accountable. Let's have like, honestly, man, it was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, just sitting there having conversations about what we think the year could bring, given everything that was starting to, all the bad things that were happening. So we did that for month and a half, 2 months. And then when things started to die down, I mean, that I learned a lot about myself in that time. I learned so much about myself. I learned I didn't have it all figured out. I learned that 2020 was either going to grow my business or absolutely kill it. It was going to pick it up. It was going to freaking swallow it. It was going to spit it back out. And I did not want that to happen, because from when I first started, like the only thing that always like kept me moving forward was just the people who laughed, the people who wanted the handout, people who just, I mean, honestly, just like ridiculed everything I was trying to grow. Just they laughed it off, and I'm just like, that's when I took it personal. And I never attacked people. I never went at people. I just kind of laughed with them, and I used that time at that local university to really just, I mean, we strategized so much. Like, it honestly gave me the plan of what I want to do for the next 5 to 10 years and how we could potentially do it, and then potential backup plans if we're good, 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 good. Oh, that didn't work out. Replace it and move forward. So that was the biggest thing. It was just finding that growth. And in June we had a launch, and that was, at that time, that was the best one we've ever had. And I was just like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People were scared to spend money. I was scared to spend money. Like, I didn't want to spend anything. And
Me
people
too,
were
man.
still, yeah, like, but people still took the time to support my small business and what I was trying to do. I was utilizing my YouTube channel to, honestly, I was starting to show like that behind the scenes of my life. And I think that was so important. And, I think that's where the growth really came from. And then as the world continued to, just pursue just hate and negativity and just the attacking of one another just because their opinions didn't align with your own, I try to utilize that. Truthfully, I try to utilize every situation possible to revert in something positive, something that was going to be moving for somebody else. And that's why I made the videos I did. That's why I started shooting content the way I did. That's why I started to, honestly, man, like, 2020 was the year where I officially stopped caring about what other people have to say, because at the end of the day, I was still going to be happy, and that was going to keep me moving forward. And that's just exactly what I did.
Dude, that's great. No, for sure, dude. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird just seeing how all of this stuff kind of comes into play, and you don't know what's going to happen with your business, if it's going to make it or break it, kind of deal. In in conjunction though, like, you were able to kind of take all of that and turn it around to use it for good. Like, you're able to kind of turn it around and use your brand to empower people to like get positive again, like to give them hope, which is what I started to see Envision as too when I started to get to know you and everything. And
I
just
think the
seeing
biggest
all of
thing was
that.
just, I just think the biggest thing was just like, the world doesn't care what you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Like, the sun's still coming up the next day. People were still going to work. You were either going to take advantage of, like, honestly, your vision at that time, or you were going to fall into the same rabbit hole of everybody else and just truthfully just feeling absolutely sorry for themselves. And I didn't
Yeah.
believe in it.
Yeah. No, absolutely, dude. Absolutely, dude. If anything, I feel like with your brand, man, you've been giving people hope, just for the next day, the next year, just getting that message of hope out with your brand. And I think that's great.
I think it's just the biggest thing at the end of the day, just
Mm-hmm.
that same message.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, for sure, dude. Um, so moving on to some more questions. How much has baseball changed as a sport? Would it be for better or for worse? And I
I
feel like you
absolutely
could explain that a lot better than I could ever do the most research on, just as a player and as a coach. I feel like you could
well,
answer
I
this
think
question best.
I think baseball has changed for the better.
Mm,
Um, I think technology has absolutely changed the game and how players are developed, how players can truly identify where their weaknesses are at. I think it gives coaches a very good tool to it's not opinion based, it's technology or it's
mm,
science. Like, it's very hard to argue with. Is technology everything? No, absolutely not. There is still that balance of establishing a player's character.
mm,
Like, what's mom and dad like? What's the player like? Are they good people? Do they love the game? Do they respect the game? Do they respect opponents, umpire? Those are things that you cannot teach. So I would say from a player development standpoint, I think that's number one, is just utilizing character, and getting a feel for what that person is, who that person is. I'm sorry. I think the second part of that is just, we have a lot of, we're in that world now in baseball where you have young guys like myself who are coming up through. Head coaches at the college level are getting hired at a younger and younger age. We have, guys who have never played baseball who are so fond of the technology side of things, they're actually getting professional jobs. Then you have like the old school version where it's just like, hey, if you want to hit better, like go hit all day. If you want to throw harder, make sure you throw hard every day. If you want to gain weight, make sure you eat an insane amount of calories every single day. Where they also have, that side of them where it's very nitty gritty. Let's compete. Let's work hard. Like let's call so and so out and hold him accountable. You can still do those things and still implement a lot of newer school models. And like I'll use like my college program for an example. Like we never used technology. My trainer that I went to outside of my program, like we did use technology, and for me it helped me really understand how I was going to get better, not what I needed to get better on. And there's so many pieces of technology. For example, there's Rapsodo, there's TrackMan, there's Blast Motion, there's movement pattern screens. That I love the movement pattern screen part because it's the ability to personalize a program for a player. Obviously, it's very hard to do at the collegiate level because there is 45, 50 men on a roster, and I mean, you can personalize a lot of things for people, but in some way, shape, or form, there has to be groups, if you will, guys who struggle in this, guys who struggle in that, guys who struggle in that. This is how we're going to get you better. And this is kind of like the technology that we could potentially use to kind of strategize that model. And if anything, I think it gives a lot of proper feedback to the players. It helps them understand what we're trying to show them, what we are seeing. And it's just not opinion based. I think baseball has grown because it has shown the difference of what intent means versus what intent means. It sounds very cliche, right? Intent is like if I wanted to grab my phone right now and I wanted to muscle everything up and I wanted to throw it, I wanted to use my whole entire body to throw it at this computer right now versus, okay, I know I move very efficiently here, here, and here in my body. How can I create effortless movement, if you will, but still throw it pretty hard.
Right.
It's just it's identifying wasted movements and maybe why players go bad or why players end up becoming really good. I think baseball has grown just in, honestly, I think just a recruiting aspect. At least the college level. I mean, that you have potential Division I guys who want to go to other divisions, which creates a lot more competitiveness because why they could play earlier, they could get more scholarship money, right? There's that aspect. Players are becoming a lot better at younger ages, so that obviously makes it a lot more competitive. When I grew up, we lived in a world where you focused on baseball just in the months that it was baseball season, and if you did good, awesome, and if you didn't, cool, like you had the summer to play and still get better. Where we live in a world now where it's like if you want to be good, like it's 365, the whole entire year. Like the whole entire year you have to find a way to get better. I think baseball has just grown tremendously. Guys are throwing harder than ever before. Hitters are, hitting balls harder and farther than ever before. I think it is truly just a thing of beauty. And, again, I'm on the one side of the spectrum where I appreciate the technology side of baseball. I understand the technology side of baseball. I still can teach guys how to compete. I can still get in somebody's rear end and let them know that they have to be better. I am still so relatable in regards to, my experiences and why I like things and why I don't like things. I'm not a coach that is do this because I told you to, because I'm the coach and you respect your superior. I'm not that type of coach. I'm more, I ask a question, and if they understand it, great. If they're able to provide valid excuses, regardless, I'm a pretty an open discussion type coach. And then I
Mm,
obviously chime in where I think that they could progress even more if they did this or if they did that or what have you.
yeah,
I think baseball has just grown in every way, shape, or form. And just because it's not, what it used to be, as far as like, I call it the old school, the old
mm,
school way. And most people, call it the old school way. I just think it's grown, and in every way, shape, or form, it has grown. Players are stronger, players are faster, players throw harder, players just there's more strategy involved. Baseball has grown everywhere,
mm,
and just because the World Series ratings aren't always the greatest, that doesn't
right.
mean that the game hasn't grown at just such an exponential rate.
Yeah. No, man, for sure. Like, I think that, I mean, baseball as a sport is literally America's pastime. Like,
Yeah.
it was one of the biggest sports from, I mean, when America was just really up and going at that time, Like, I mean, we got the great Bambino, Babe Ruth, all of those greats. And it was just something that really created, I think, a lot of moments for people in history, especially in America. And
Hmm.
so just whenever I think of baseball as a sport, I think of it as America's, pastime. It's a great time,
Yeah.
and a great sport in that aspect. But Mike, I wanted to ask you about a couple of movies. Um, and I'm hoping, let's see, I'll ask you about this one first, but you told me that you hadn't seen it yet, but it was a Robert Redford film. It was called The Natural. What did you think about
So if I'm being honest, I had tried to rent it on Amazon Prime, and for some
Oh
reason
no.
it became unavailable. So I was like,
Oh
okay, like
wow.
I tried watching on like my Fire Stick, like because
Mm,
I had like a jerry rigged one. I don't know. I used it in college, and I couldn't even like download a stream on there. So like that was pretty
okay.
unfortunate. But yeah, so I apologize for
Oh,
that.
you're good, dude. You're good. They had it on Netflix at some point in time, and I ended up watching it, and it was a great movie. I mean, like it was about this guy who was actually a very good professional baseball player, and he said, like, if I could just kind of describe the movie to you, I won't spoil it for you, but like at the beginning of the movie, he said that he was going to become one of the greatest, and it was this person that asked him that, and then it was kind of a climactic part of the movie because then we kind of go into the rest of the story after this, but he gets shot and you almost think that he dies, but the movie obviously continues, and then we see him trying out for this team to play professionally.
Oh yeah.
And basically, what he ended up doing was making a huge comeback. And just to kind of tell you a little bit about his character without giving away too much, he was a heavy hitter. He was helping out a really rundown team that had no way out, where they were kind of down in the dumps. They were the losing team in America. But he was kind of like this weird heavy hitter, like home run hitter, all star guy that kind of brought them back. And as the story goes, which I really got to save it for you because it's a good movie, um, Robert Redford kind of brings some things to fruition in that story and helps the team out and helps them grow. And at the same time, it's kind of a inspirational, motivational movie. And as a baseball player, and as me being a young baseball player for at least 2 years of my 6 or 7 year old career at the time, like
Yeah.
I really appreciated it as a movie, and it was really good. But I wanted to ask you about Moneyball. Figured.
Yeah. So I think the movie Moneyball, I think it'll be very rare if that model had ever worked the
Hmm.
same way, right?
Right.
I think the movie Moneyball gave us that first inside scoop on how data was being utilized to structure and develop a team,
Hmm.
and that's kind of like how we are in today's world. Even now
Right.
with Rapsoda, with TrackMan, with Blast Motion, you could see all of the greatest numbers in the world, and the question still is, can they do it in game? And you
Hmm.
see a lot of trainers, you see a lot of programs try to structure a practice environment or a program, if it is a private instructor, for a hitter, for a pitcher, and what they truly need to do to get better and how it can translate to the game where it matters the most. I think the movie Moneyball was a great, great, great story. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm.
The reason why is because you had Billy Beane, who the odds were all against him. The program needed a spark. He went back and forth with the head coach about, hey, play him, not him. This kind of messes up the model that we're trying to do. And until the head coach had bought in and the players started to buy in, that's when they started to see that success. You know, that's when they got like a real opportunity. That's when Billy Beane was getting job offers like the Boston Red Sox to go and be part of that winning culture there. You know, I think the ability to utilize data, you know, from game statistics and during, you know, versus matchups like right-handed pitcher versus left-handed batter or lefty-lefty match, like, you know, you could go through any scenario that you wanted. You knew statistically what you had and how much money that you had to invest to kind of, I mean, formulate this team. I think that's why it was so successful. I think there was a lot of strategy that the movie doesn't even show.
Mm.
You know, you can look up any article, you can ask anybody in the world, you know, you can ask baseball guys who were kind of around when that was actually happening in real life. People loved it. People also hated it. And that's the same thing today. People love the technology side of baseball. People also hate the technology side of baseball. You know, there's an argue of velocity versus command. And then you know, when you see guys who have velocity and also have command, I'm speaking from a pitcher's perspective, of
Mm.
course,
Right.
you know, or, you know, there's just different things with hitters where it's like, you know, they can hit the ball 380 feet and they can hit it at 105 to 110 off the bat, you know, like there's so many things that is tracked, is recorded, and people don't appreciate that all the time because they think technology is ruining the integrity of the game.
Mm.
They think, and when I say they, I'm referring to people who kind of are never really open for the discussion on what technology has done for baseball.
Mm.
Those are the kind of people that just kind of think it's ruining the game, and they appreciate the movie Moneyball, but they don't appreciate that it actually happened in real life. They call it, you know, a fluke. It'll never work again. It will, you know, that was lucky. Hey, it didn't happen the way it happened because I knew a friend who knew a friend who had a cousin who had a brother who worked in that organization. You know, like you hear every story in the book, and I think at the end of the day, why not try to appreciate the best of both worlds, utilize our network as coaches, as players, as parents, as, you know, scouts, whoever. If you are a part of the baseball world, why can we not try to come together more often, to ask more questions, to try to understand one another's perception? Because who knows, something that you thought you had figured out, you probably don't have figured out. And it's the ability to consistently learn on a regular basis. That's where, from a player, that's the difference of you potentially becoming better versus worse. As a coach, that could change how you do things in a practice setting. That's how you could, you know, potentially run your team. That could potentially change, you know, like honestly, your output on how like you view things. You know, you could either grow. I don't think you'll ever fail. You'll just learn, you
Mm.
know, and that's just part of the learning process, not just in baseball, but in life, where, you know, you win and you learn. You don't fail. You are always learning, because when you try to do it again, or if you do it in a different way, you made some form of adjustment that got you to that point. So that's why I really appreciate the movie. That's why I appreciate the story, and that's why I really appreciate the game of baseball and what it is today.
Yeah, definitely, man. And like for me, when I watched it, and I really do, and I appreciate the movie and the story, especially with what Billy had done at that time and how he did pull it off. And with his character, you also see throughout the movie like his flashbacks to when he was a player versus being a manager now.
Yep.
And I feel like from his experience in the game, playing with the team and baseball being his life, essentially, he failed almost completely as a player.
Yep.
But what he was able to do and to like bring together in this team with the management teams and the coaches is he was able to see where he had screwed up and what he was able to pull off with this team, even if it was just a one-time shot, you know. And then we also see at the end of the movie that he continued to do baseball management. I think I'm saying that right. He continued to do baseball management at the end of the movie with some other teams or the same team. I think I can't remember now. I've seen too many other movies since then, but yeah, dude. Like I was able to appreciate like, wow, okay, so this guy he took what didn't work for him, how he failed, and then he was able to turn it around and able to pick and choose which players were going to, be able to do their best in whatever situation they had present for them at that time as a team and make it work. And including, I mean, making the money that they had made, that was just really cool, I
So
thought.
I think a good story. This is one of my favorite stories. I tell my
Mm.
players this all the time. It was my sophomore year of college. I had, I'd come back to campus just with a whole different mindset. I was ready to be the guy. I was ready to hit. I wanted to hit hard. I wanted to run fast. I wanted to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I put so much pressure on myself instead of just, truly enjoying just the ride of just, being a college baseball player.
Yeah.
I started out the season really good. I was super excited about what the rest of the season had in store for me. I got into that spot where, and I tell my players this all the time. I get, thankfully I was blessed to have such a phenomenal trainer whenever I was coming through, college. His name
Mm.
is Tyler Mitchell.
That's
Tyler was a
great.
guy, he was a younger dude. He related to me a ton. He was always growing every single day. He was always finding a way to learn, to ask questions, he was just growing at such a rapid rate. He truly inspired me to become obsessed with the art of hitting the way that I am today. And I'll
Mm.
be the first one to tell you, I was like a 200 career college hitter. I'm
Mm.
not going to get in my college Hall of Fame. I never got drafted. I was at a small Division III school.
Yeah.
None of it matters right now. And when I talk to my players, I tell them this story every single time. When I thought I was the guy my sophomore year, I fell into a slump. And what that slump looked like was I went 0 for 16 straight.
Mm.
I was 0 for 16.
Good.
I had 14 strikeouts. I had a pop up to the catcher, and then I hit a hard line drive right at the center fielder. I was taken out of the starting lineup. I was put on the bench, and instead of, honestly, I felt sorry for myself. I was pouty. I was grumpy. I started becoming a bad teammate. But then I realized, hey, I can still pitch. My arm is still good. And then I
Mm.
found a new role within the team for that season, being a pitcher. And that's one thing that looking back, I think that's why I'll be, a good coach potentially. I hope to be as good of a coach as half the coaches that I've had in my career.
Mm.
And even like some of the greatest coaches that have ever been part of the game. And I think it really just stems down to just the ability to learn something new every single day.
Yeah.
I told my group this before I left to come back here to New Mexico, and they're getting ready to have a showcase on January 17th. These are my high school guys.
Oh, very cool.
And talking to even with our college hitters, like I tell these guys the same stories, and you're going to be 80 years old sitting down watching a baseball game, and you're still going to try to perfect the game of failure. And that essentially is the beauty of baseball. People can say what they want about my career and how I was as a player. Was I a good guy? Was I a bad guy? Right. At the end of the day, I just wanted to work extremely hard. I had a good group of coaches that had my back. I had, Tyler Mitchell who had my back, and I had his, now more than ever, now that I'm a coach, because I wouldn't be in a lot of the positions that I am today if it weren't for the coaches that I've had, and that kind of leads me to my a saying that I was once told was you just have to leave it better than how you found it. And my job at the end of the day is to consistently put these players both in high school and at college just in a better position than I was at their age moving forward. That's what you have to do at the end of the day.
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. That's a great story. I think that would encourage anybody, especially if they're just starting out or if they're, trying to make it big, what they're trying to do, or especially with some of those players that are having those problems. But if they're able to learn something new or learn from their mistakes, and you're there to be that kind of coach and implement that too. Plus, you have the talent of also being a player at the same time. So you've been able to meld those together to
Yep.
be just a great all around, well rounded coach, and you could help them with that.
I was
Great
thankful to
story.
get in. I was thankful to get into coaching while I was still a player, and the reason why was because you hear a lot of stories about how parents or players dislike the coach,
Mm.
and it was my junior year. We got a brand new coach. And, it was going to force me so much out of my comfort zone and what I was becoming accustomed to. I did not like the situation that was there. And I got to that spot whenever I started coaching, like that's when I reached out to my coach and I just said, like, I am sorry, like, for my attitude or like things that I've said or just how I carry it, like whatever. Just at the end of the day, I'm sorry because I've had to make some really tough decisions coaching this summer. Granted, it is summer ball, but it was the first time I was going to be on the opposite side of the game, and to make some of the tough decisions, whether it's your pitching rotation, whether it's like, do you keep this guy in the lineup for one more game? Do you pinch hit him here? Do you need a pinch run? Like, at the end of the day, playing the game for so long, you can kind of figure some things like that out pretty quickly. But it's not until like you actually start making those decisions and you start seeing just sequences, you start seeing strategy from a coaching style, that's where I really just was like, I I thought I had it figured out, and now I realize I'll never have it figured out. So that's why every day I have to be the best Mike Eversole that I can be, not only for my players but for myself. And to this day, right now, like my former college coach, like him and I are close. He's completely changing the program, where I played at and went to school. He's getting better players. The players that were currently there, they're understanding what it takes to be part of something potentially special. And I never regret things. That's one thing about me. I never regret things because I think things happen for a reason in the way that they happen. But looking back, I'm almost thankful that I learned the things that I did at the time that I did, because I probably would have never have learned to appreciate my coach the way I do today, and even what I did throughout my whole entire senior year. And I noticed, like, after that year of coaching, I started to kind of become a better player because I was learning from even my players' failures and even some of the mistakes that I made as a coach that first season. It helped me become a better player my senior year. I was well respected by my teammates. I love that team. I still do. I miss the guys all the time because we're not always together. But, looking back, that's why I'm so thankful for my coach. I always tell him, like, thank you so much for, like, putting me in the opportunity I am today. And, I'm always just thanking him. But that's really just how our relationship grew. It took for me to see things on the other side of the game to truly understand that the decisions that he made that I hated and despised, it truly just that was the best decision for our team. And I was selfish because that didn't always involve me.
Gotcha. Yeah, at the end of the day, there's no I in team, right?
Well, as Michael Jordan once said, there's an I in win.
Yeah, there's an I in win. Forgot about Michael. Oh man, yeah, dude. No, that's good. That's great. I love that, dude. Getting back to the movies, last one I had to ask you about. What did you think of The Sandlot?
I think the Sandlot it removes any hate, any argument that we see in the baseball world today. It's just good old fashioned neighborhood kids getting together playing baseball. They don't have the greatest equipment. They don't have all the baseballs in the world. The field is completely run down. They barely have bases. You know what I mean? Like, that movie is so special to me, and I think just to the baseball world, because it forces people of all ages to look back and find the inner kid who first fell in love with the game, because they remember when they were roaming the streets of their neighborhoods, playing baseball at the park or having practices or just whatever the case may be. And I think it really just it shows what true friendship is. At the end, like when it shows Smalls and Benny was playing for the Dodgers, and just if you're surrounded by the right group of people you trust, people who, love and care and respect you and, your ambitions for your life, you don't have to be jealous of that person. You just kind of learn to do it with them. I'll use a really good example that I'm actually living right now. So a kid that I coach in high school, his older brother, he was a really good pitcher coming out of high school. He ended up going to a Division I school. He got injured, And, with me coaching his younger brother, I'm obviously hearing all the details of what that recovery process looks like. Being around his older brother, he's very poised. He's passionate about the game. He's not a talkative, like, I'm going to go and do that. He just likes to take care of his business, and he just wants to work hard, and he just wants to be part of something again. And whenever I was sitting down here in New Mexico, like, I gave him a call and I just said, you know, have you ever thought about moving down south? And we had talked. I talked with his dad, and
Mm.
it was just going back and forth. I wasn't fully aware of what he wanted, and here I was. Last summer was like the first time that I truly met him and was around him and all that stuff. And I just got in that spot where I just said, dude, let's get you down here, man. Like, I know it's not Division 1, it's Division 2. It's a phenomenal conference. It's a phenomenal opportunity. I'm down here. I know it's away from home, from good old Ohio. It's scary. You're going to be fearful of what tomorrow may bring. I don't know, man, but all
Yeah.
I know is one thing. Like, you and I know each other. I know I know you need an opportunity. Like, we're prepared to give you that opportunity. Come down here, man. Like, let's do this one together.
Mm.
And he's just like, you know what, man, like, let's do this. And so he's down here now. And like,
That's great.
I text him, and he's all settled in, he's all good to go. And like I told him again last night, I said, reminder, man, like, it's a scary situation. Like, I hate being far away from home. This is good growth. This is
Mhm.
really good growth. And hey, like, let's do this one together, man. Because why not? Why not? Like, let's like live in the moment for one time in our life, and like, let's just do this one together. And this is a guy who, I know the family so well, and honestly, it speaks on the character. Like,
Mm.
mom's very, very polite, and she raised phenomenal kids. Dad's really polite. He's very smart. He's energetic about the game, and one thing he always cared about was like the growth of development for both of his kids. So I think the opportunity to coach his younger brother and then to be around him, that helped me understand just like their full dynamic and full situation. And that's why I was truly, encouraged to try to get him an opportunity to come down here and play for us. With me being a hitting guy, I'm not going to be telling him how he should do things or what he should do, but my job is to focus on one thing. And, that's just to keep his mental in check, make sure he's continuing to work hard, make sure he's still happy here. And, honestly, just to remind him, man, like, he's got a familiar face around. Like, use it, take advantage of it. Like, because we're doing this one together. I need him just as much as he needs me, because this is something so new for us. It's not that, it's just to kind of help push the fear away of failing or of being away from home. And, let's grow together, both as player and coach, and just as people at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah, man. No, that's a great example. I think that kind of reflects the Sandlot a lot in a few different ways. For me, like, I think for me, like, when I, well, actually, for me, when I watched The Sandlot, I think I wasn't even playing baseball at the time until after I watched that movie. And overall, it's a great fundamental movie just for the fact that it's like the childhood love for the game,
Yep.
and the fact that, what you'd also said earlier about the movie, just that they didn't really have a whole lot of equipment. They didn't have all the baseballs in the world. Their field was kind of run down, but the
They
fact that
just found a way. They just
they,
found a way.
they just found a way. Yeah. And the cool thing about it though, too, is that they were a bit of a community, or a tribe, if you will, that just got together because they all had one thing in common. They loved to play baseball,
Yeah.
and I thought that was so cool. And then we had the two main characters, which were basically Benny and Smalls, come into the picture. And, it was really just Smalls's story about that one summer where he got involved with them and stuff. And, he was able to, become a part of that tribe of guys that, just
Yep.
had this love for the game. And he didn't even know what baseball was. He didn't know how to throw a baseball or catch one, let alone hit one,
Right.
but that was able to give him a sense of community, and
Yep.
I think that's also something that a lot of men need nowadays too. You never see that really that much with kids anymore. But I mean, to a certain degree, I mean, I kind of had it in high school growing up, but I mean, our culture and our time and days, because this was set in a different time period. Like, our culture and things now today have changed so much too at the same time. But
Yep.
definitely overall though, like, it just brings out that childhood love for the game of baseball.
Yep.
It's just so beautiful in that aspect. And that's why it's got a special place in my heart too as well, man. Like, something I grew up with, I love the sport. I think it's great. And it's just brought back a lot of old memories for me when I was just, watching it recently. So,
Absolutely.
well, Mike, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Why don't you go ahead and just tell people real quick where they can find you? You can go ahead and put out your platforms, your website, talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about your t-shirts,
Yeah.
Envision.
My username on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is just at Mike__Eversole. Eversole spelled Eversole. I always get asked. Um, my brand is Envision Clothing Company. It's www.envisionclothingcompany.com, and our usernames on the same platforms are at Envision Cloth Co. And that's where you can find me. That's where you can learn more about me. And then I'm also on YouTube. I have like almost 1,000 subs. I'm like halfway there. So
Yeah, you're at
if
the
you're
halfway
watching
mark,
this,
man.
please go subscribe. But it's just my name. It's just Mike Eversole. And then that you'll probably see this logo everywhere because I do a lot of vlogs about the brand and kind of like the development of it and what the next chapter is looking like. So any and all support is always appreciated. And I just want to thank you for your time and having me on here, man.
Yeah, no, Mike, thank you for your time as well. And for everybody that's watching, and including my audience and my viewers, just want to let you guys know I will be putting all these links down below in the description. So go ahead and click them and check them out. Check out Mike's website. Follow him on all his major platforms. And if you guys want to see any exclusive content for some exclusive episodes of the LJEffect podcast, you will be able to find that on my Patreon. It's literally only about, okay, so it costs about as much as a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I'm starting out tiers at $5 per tier. You'll get all access to all my exclusive content on that page. So definitely go out there. The reason why I started Patreon was to grow my podcast platform and to also grow my channel and just to put anything and everything that I earn back into my channel and just to grow it as a channel. And yeah, guys, as far as channels go too, make sure that you guys check out Mike, subscribe to his channel, Mike Eversole on YouTube. And if you guys are all just starting to see this for the first time and seeing me for the first time on this podcast, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on my channel. And yeah, if anything, Mike, thanks again for doing this. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to have this conversation with me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
All right. You guys have been watching the LJEffect podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks again, Mike.
Yep. Thank you.